call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could, silent all your phones, and we're going to take a moment of silent prayer, please. Okay, thank you. Glad to see everybody in today, and for people that will be watching. We start with roll call. This meeting we're going to start with Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Mike Smith, I'm here. Commissioner Dove.
Here.
Vanessa.
Here.
He's not Dove.
Huh?
He's not Dove.
Dove.
Oh, Dove. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said Dove.
You did your railroad.
You can bump
Yeah. We'll share one with you, Jeff.
Here.
Don't start already. We'll just get this meeting started.
So there it is.
Okay. Public comment. I have a few people lined up. Reminder that we've now increased it to 5 minutes. Please come up when I call your name to the podium. Identify yourself, where you live, and you've got up to 5 minutes, should you need that much time to speak to the governing body. So the first one I have is Julie Downs.
And you're not required to take 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, not required.
You're not required to take 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Julie Downs, 13462 222nd Street. Hear about the rodeo. You know, I remember when we went with some neighbors 20 years ago to talk about these same rodeos. Over the years, I've compiled a lot of documentation and information that I've sent on to the county. In fact, this latest 2024, I was in correspondence with county officials about non-SUP events that were held at this location in Cantrell. So this isn't my husband or my first rodeo about this. I reread the TSUP on May 31st, and Melissa Johnson asked for input when they applied for the TSUP. Kyle Anderson stated on June 3rd, 2024 to Melissa that the applicant has held multiple events with without a SUP or TSUP in the past. The judge has required them to obtain a TSUP for any future events. If the TSUP is approved, the current court case will be dismissed if they comply with that TSUP, which they applied to do the event on July 27th. That's a pretty good deal for them, especially when consider they had a non-SUP event the very next day. And I have documentation. They were parking all along the road. They had their music way beyond 60 decibels. They had a light show and even louder music at 1:30 in the morning that we could hear from our porch a mile away, right the day after they applied for this. That's pretty brazen, but it's not surprising for us because we've dealt with this for years. So given the long history and the fact the county has acknowledged to us that they were repeat offenders, we were shocked and dismayed when the commissioners approved a TSUP event on July 27th. We were so upset, in fact, that we dipped into our retirement funds and hired a compliance agency to go to this event for several things, including alcohol and excessive drinking, which Commissioner Stephen had asked, and some of you had asked specifically, and Mr. Hayro said that just a few people got drunk out of, a lot of times we've seen 200 or 300 people in the crowd. And we did hire our compliance agency who found an ad with alcohol sales. Drinking's important, by the way, because you have two ways to go when you leave Cantrell Road, I-70 or two-lane highway, and people are leaving late with horse trailers, and it's a big deal. The other thing is we wanted to see how horses and animals were being treated. I've worked in the nonprofit and corporate philanthropy sector for 30 years, serving underserved communities and people. Animals are my passion. So we give to the Leavenworth and Lawrence Humane Shelters. And over 20 years ago, a national organization, Humane Shelter, called me and said a sheriff's deputy gave me my name to them, wanted to know if these charitas, I don't know how to call them, were still going on, that they could be brutal. And I said, I thought they were going to be stopped, but they weren't. We have evidence on hot days that they were having events with these horses. So now before I go on, I wanted to ask Mr. Jacobson or Miss Allison 2 quick questions. Did you or any county staff go to the event to see about compliance on July 27th?
This isn't a questioning thing. We just need to hear what we're going to go into that later on.
Okay. And I want to know if the event actually occurred, because here's the deal. Given the fact that no one from the county has monitored one of these rodeos in 20 years, so we spent our own money to see about it, we were ready. The compliance agent was ready. We were ready. We were ready to look at this event, and guess what? They never had it. But they didn't tell the Planning and Zoning Committee on January 8th that the July 27th event never happened, when they came in and asked for 15 more events because of good behavior. And after all, you can't have complaints if you don't do an event. So that's pretty smart, and it's pretty brazen. After all, the county has never come again to one of these events all these years, and they were betting they wouldn't on July 27th. And the fact they never said a word about this event, which they knew was a condition of getting 15 more events and a release from Codes Court, should put an end to the decision for future events pretty quickly. They lied. They should be back in Codes Court, and for that event on June 1st, non-SUP, they should be coded for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, David Downs. Good morning. Sir, address, and you've got up to 5 minutes.
Okay. David Downs, 13462 222nd Street.
Thank you.
I've got a list of stuff, but I really don't know how to get into it. I'm not as spoken as my wife, but it's not a good deal what's going on and been going on the last quarter century down here. So we're asking for a little bit of help, and the big thing is, if it does get denied, is what's the plans to stop it? Because he will continue to have them with your consent or not. And I guess that's most what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Crystal? Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning, gentlemen and Ms. Reed. I'm Crystal Blackdeer. I'm here representing the Leavenworth County Humane Society, which is located at 100 West Gilman in Lansing, Kansas. And I wrote to you all to request that this special use permit be denied. The number is 24-125, a special use permit for RJ Farm. I predict that if approved, this body will be condoning and even inviting illegal activity in our county. Not only illegal in terms of cruelty to animals. One condition of the permit is that all local, state, and federal rules and regulations will be adhered to, but I've not been able to uncover any evidence that anyone has looked to see if this is the case. One of the property owners testified on January 8th at the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission that RJ Ranch holds rodeos, or chariada. I may not be pronouncing it correctly, but that's my closest approximation. He also used the word chariada 3 times when talking about the events at their property, and this was not a mistake. Chariada includes 7 to 9 events for men, depending on the source consulted. One of the events involves tripping horses by lassoing their front legs and causing them to fall. This is prohibited by KSA 21-640 6412, subparagraph A, subparagraph 4, which says intentionally using a wire, pole, stick, rope, or any other object to cause an equine to lose its balance or fall for the purpose of sport or entertainment. This specific event is against the law in Kansas. No matter where it happens, no matter who does it, it's against the law. But there are photographs on social media identified as being from this ranch in which this activity is depicted, and I believe I shared at least one of those with you. The anti-cruelty statute makes allowance for events sanctioned by the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, but horse tripping and steer tailing are not sanctioned events. The PRCA also requires that a veterinarian be on site at the event, just as there's a veterinarian at the Leavenworth County Fair. The Kansas Department of Agriculture requires that exhibition and rodeo stock being imported to Kansas be accompanied by a certificate of veterinary inspection, signed by a veterinarian. It doesn't matter how long the animal will be here, or if it comes only from Missouri, there must be a health certificate. The exception to that is if it's going to slaughter. Another condition of the proposed permit states that employees or agents of the county will be allowed access to the property to verify that conditions of the permit are being adhered to. This was a condition of the temporary permit also, but again, I can't see that anyone went out to verify that the conditions were being met. I've not been to the property to attend an event or otherwise, but it's not difficult to find evidence. It's easy to find evidence that illegal activity has been conducted at this property in the past. There's no reason to expect that the way these rodeos are conducted will be any different in the future. There's evidence of ticket sales online and advertising online, though we've been told that they don't really advertise. This is not about private quinceañeras or weddings or family or cultural gatherings and celebrations. It's not even about public ticketed events if conducted in compliance with statute, rules, and regulations. Though ticketed events should have some evidence of tax revenue somewhere and permits for food and beverage sales or service. I understand that land use is the focus, but should this permit be approved, I predict that animals will be harmed, children will be taught that cruelty is sport, laws will be broken, and this body will be partially to blame, especially if no one monitors to ensure compliance.
I have a question for her. That's all right?
Go ahead.
The two illegal activities that you cited was horse tripping. What was the other one?
Steer tailing.
And could you describe those?
In horse tripping, there's a cowboy on a horse, sometimes multiple cowboys on a horse. They lasso the front legs of the horse and cause it to fall. That's the horse tripping. And it doesn't have to be the front legs. Sometimes, you throw a lasso, you might catch their back legs. No big deal if they lasso it around the neck. That's not tripping. Getting them around the feet is tripping. The steer tailing, a cowboy, or sometimes there are multiple cowboys in the videos, and they ride past and they get around their right leg, the steer tail, and cause the steer to fall.
Okay.
And those two things are illegal under Kansas law.
Yes.
And is your statement today representing yourself personally, or are you representing the position of the Humane Society of
The
Leavenworth
Humane
County?
Society stands against these chariota events.
Okay, and so so the position of the Leavenworth County Humane Society is in opposition.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yep.
Okay, did Mr. Bigsby show up, Dennis?
Yes, he is.
Oh, I didn't see you out there. Come on down. Here he is. Morning, Dennis. You got 5 minutes, sir.
All right, thank you. Members of the commission, thank you. And it's been a few years since I sat back there, so I appreciate your service. My name is Dennis Bixby. I live at 704 East Street in Tonganoxie. And when I was on the commission from 2013 to 2017, I was down in what used to be called the 3rd District. So everything south of Dempsey Road in the county was the district at the time. This wasn't my district, and I did receive calls to go down and look at the facility, which I have from a distance. I didn't ever enter the property, but I did go down and look, and there was a crowd I would guess to be about 400 to 500 people by the time you figured all the people in the stands and then all the people that were helping with the rodeo and things like that. There was music. I didn't measure the decibels or anything like that. But it was quite a group, and at the time we were fighting the SUPs a little bit because they were not adhering to what they said that they would do, and they were reluctant in getting those. And on one particular event, we had, let's say 400 people, be conservative about it, and we had 2 porta potties. Well, I called a couple of porta potty people and said, if I'm going to have an event this size, how many do you need? They said, 1 for every 10 people. And I said, how many hand washing stations do you typically need for that? And they said, generally 1 for every 20 people. Now, the other thing is that we're going to have 15 events by this. Even the Speedway doesn't have 15 events. And the reason I bring that on is you're having all these cars park in the grass. We have rain. You're going to wear the grass out, and there's nothing but runoff going to a very short distance to the creek. And so that's animal waste, that's runoff from the cars, that's erosion, et cetera, et cetera. So in making your decision, I would ask that you do several things. Number one, you have a set of bleachers down there, which if you're putting that many people in a stand, I would think you would need an engineering report stating that they would hold up to at least, at least 60,000 pounds based on the distribution and weight factor. I'm not an engineer. I don't play one on TV, but I would ask for you to do that due diligence. The other thing, too, it's your responsibility to be the safety officers of Leavenworth County. And that would also mean that you get a health compliance through KDHE to make sure that they're dealing with the erosion properties, also the human waste, the animal waste, so that when you do have big rains and you have runoff, that has a way of being disposed of properly rather than just run off into the creek. I would also ask that you have an economic impact study to make sure that it's going to be something that it is worthwhile and profitable to the county. Not necessarily profitable, that's probably a bad word, but the county is not losing money on this, and that also any kind of liabilities that might arise to the county, such as law enforcement, ambulance, etc., could be made up to the county. Let's see, going through my notes here. I didn't see where any sales tax from this organization had ever been paid, either for ticket sales or concessions, and I didn't see any health inspections from concessions. And as far as I know, there's been no alcohol permit issued for the sale or serving of alcohol. We are very close to K32 as well as the Kansas Turnpike, and so I would think that would be something that you'd want. Anything in the county, you want it to speak well of the county, and you also want it to you want them to be successful, and you want the county to not be out anything. And so this is just one of those things. It's kind of like you can't go out and buy a fire truck once a house is on fire. You have to go out and do that in advance. So I thank you for your time, and I would just ask that we do a lot more thinking and examining before you grant this permit for 15 events.
Thank you, Mr. Bixby. Okay, Joe Herring. Morning, Joe.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Herring, Herring Surveying, 315 North 5th Street. I want to thank you for having us up here. First off, I want to start off a little different. I want to apologize to the county administrator. Late last week, I sent a reply to him that was perceived unprofessional. That was not my intent. It was not a jab at any sitting commissioner or staff member. It was an attempt at humor that failed, and I do apologize for that. That was definitely not it. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about an SUP. That stuff's in the past, and that's, I think, the main thing we need to discuss is they have been through codes court. They were given direction by the judge, by the court. Apply for your SUP. If it's awarded, then you are governed by the rules and regulations of this county, this state, to handle your events accordingly. Do it right. Get your SUP. And that's what the court said. That's what the judge said to do, and that's why we're here. They have been through with staff, tried to answer all their questions as best as they could. They even had to do a turning radius into a driveway that, according to testimonies of neighborhoods, they've been having the rodeos for years. And that's not being denied. But they've been getting horse trailers in there forever. Well, they had to prove that they can get horse trailers in there. So I don't think that was being discussed. But anyway, that's in the past. We're here to move forward. Let them follow the letter of the law. And if they can't, their SUP gets pulled. But this is what the court said. The court said, come here, get the SUP. That's what you guys are here to determine, whether you decide for it or against it. Some key points have been talked about. Alcohol. Yes, there's alcohol on the property. They will not sell alcohol on the property, nor will the vendors sell alcohol on the property. There will not be any parking on county right-of-way. That point has been proven. They will adhere to that. They will have adequate portable restrooms on site. They will contract, as part of the SUP agreement, they will contract with a company to supply necessary bathrooms. They will make sure that all trash is picked up from neighboring properties. Stuff blows around. Yes, it will get on neighboring properties, but they will try to avoid that. Per discussion with planning staff, there's a comment in there about no amplified music. It was explained to me that the comments that the 60 decibel increase at the property line holds, whether they have amplified music or an amplified PA system or not, they will adhere to the 60 decibel level at the property line. They cannot increase over the current stuff. The number of public events, I highly doubt they have 15 rodeos. That's just a number out there. As for the public's input, that's why we have these meetings. We have the public side of it at the planning commission level. Respect all their opinions. They've been living through this. It has been, warranted because of they have not had a SUP, so there's been no regulations on them. But that's why we're here, to get those regulations on them and have them act accordingly and follow the rules of our county and follow the rule or the decision of the judge. So we appreciate your time. We're looking forward to an approval of this SUP and following the judge's court case. And we would like to have this for a period of 10 years.
Thank you, Mr. Herring.
Do you want us to ask some questions later?
Yeah, we'll get into that later. Mr. Klemp here, he usually has to speak.
He is.
Right in front.
You going to say something?
Well, you have
Mr.
anything
Klemp?
today?
Mr. Klemp?
Let's look at the back.
It's amazing what 5 minutes brings in. Everybody wants to talk. They don't want to talk in 3 minutes. Got to talk every day. That's been my way of life. My name's Louis Klemp, 1816 Pine Ridge Drive, Leavenworth, Kansas. And I want to thank you for these people for the 5 minutes. You're good people. You just need to have some inputs from maturity. On the 16th of January, I took a lady, it's called my wife, south to Pensacola, Florida. so she could see the airplanes I flew. I flew about 25 different airplanes, flew helicopters, flew jets, you name it, I flew it. We've just had this, so we went down Little Rock, Miramar, Pensacola, Destin, Florida. I came back because I drove her down. There was a guy a year ago sitting in the back of an airplane that I went to a wedding. All I wanted to do was get back and beat the living you-know-what out of him. So I went from age 60 to age 80. I got sick. That's very disgraceful that people should know you don't put other people in trouble. So it was very interesting going down to Little Rock and the highways and coming back, the highways in Illinois. My God, 60, 70, no, we don't need that. So it's good advice to pass on to the sheriff. Let's start enforcing the rules and get these people, because if somebody is going to get really hurt and killed, I'm going to volunteer to help them pay a lawyer to sue the county, the city, or ever who it is that has allowed that violation. That is a disgrace to our society. And it's just somebody has mentioned that to you. We got a good sheriff. He can do that. Highway 98 down in Florida. Oh, was it beautiful. Little lights. You're going 60. You're going 50. You're going this. You're going that. It's really set out for intelligence. And the police cars going up and down the highway. God, was that great. There's only one thing greater, and I can't think, well, it's homemade ice cream. That
is pretty good.
Yeah, it's homemade. Well, there's another subject, and I can't remember what that was. It was years ago. But it's interesting, and I wanted to mention some educational things. I flew up and down China. I flew up and down Korea. I flew up and down Russia, the port up in the east side of Russia. Nobody knows in our society really what was going on in those places. I almost got shot down one day. Well, about 5 times. But it's a shame that we just had a major accident because people don't enforce the law. There's no helicopter. I flew the H-19, H-34, and the Huey. I flew them. No helicopter should be going down under a jet. Totally disgraceful for killing 60-some people. No big deal. What's 60-some people here, 60-some people there? And that is a big deal. We let that helicopter, and we're going to study. We're going to study. We're going to study. We're not going to come up with anything other than the fact the helicopter raised, and you talk about the jet went down 100 feet and came up 120 feet. God, I've come down 500 feet. 3 times going up and down Korea, and I finally told the guy I was flying with, why don't you call the old man and tell him we're coming home. We're not going to cross that again, because they got 13 people on that airplane, and they're not liking it, going down 500 feet just like that. So it's interesting. But we had a gentleman, and he's in bad physical shape now, wanted to bring a highway, another subject, bring a highway around Leavenworth. We now want to take Highway 5 and go down. The thing they did down there at DeSoto, stupid. I don't know where these stupid people come from. We don't have those in here in Leavenworth. Stop signs. Go this way, go that way, go this way, turn, come this way. That is ridiculous. But that's the state. That's the way the state does it. You get a governor like Kelly, she's doing other things. So, State Highway 5 needs to be looked at and done. Road west of Leavenworth needs to be looked at and done. And I hear he's still alive, but he's not with us. And my first ticket was on Highway 7. 1956. You were all driving in 1956, weren't you? They got me for speeding, passing a car. There was only two lanes, passing a car. They got me for that. And I said, well, I had to pass the guy. He was going 50 and it's 55 miles an hour. Well, he liked the idea.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be moving on now. Administrative business. We have a letter of support for House Bill 2005 that Commissioner Reed presented. It's in your packet. Discussion. You want to say anything on this, Commissioner?
Sure. I'll just go ahead and read it if that's okay.
Sure.
Leavenworth Board of County Commissioners supports tax relief for all Kansans. We also recognize that people with disabilities face difficulties in paying property taxes that others don't. While House Bill 2005, as presented, does not offer relief to all taxpayers, it does allow veterans with a total disability to receive an income tax credit of up to 75% based upon their property and ad valorem taxes paid. The language in HB 2005 as presented simplifies the calculation of eligibility when compared to the Kansas Homestead Act and in our opinion is a much better approach. The Leavenworth Board of County Commissioners appreciates that the state will be responsible to fund any financial impact this may have rather than pushing the cost back on local government. We believe this is an admirable start to property tax relief and encourage the House and Senate to support this act. We encourage further action to support property tax relief for all homeowners in Kansas. Sincerely, Leavenworth County Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, any comments on that? Go ahead.
Does it have a cap on how much the disabled veteran's income is to
That's a great
qualify them
question.
for this?
I don't think it does.
I can,
Does
if you'd like, I can address that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
The House Bill 2005 does not have a cap on income or property valuation. The Homestead Act has a cap on both of those.
So my problem with this is not so much if they live in a $500,000 house, they still qualify for this, for everybody else to pay their taxes for them. But if they make $500,000 a year, or more realistically, over $200,000 a year, if a disabled veteran makes over $200,000 a year, they would qualify for this. So that's the part I have an issue with. If this had a salary cap, I have no problem with the rest of it. I'd be more than happy to support it. But I don't support something that's going to pass this tax burden on to the other people, and they're making over $200,000 a year. I can't agree with that. So I'm just telling you my opinion, just one.
I appreciate it. I think my understanding is that just not trying to discriminate between veterans, it's just simply across the board. If they have the disability, then they're able to apply for reimbursement through the state.
And I get all that, but it still has no salary cap. So you're
Yeah.
saying that somebody would qualify for this even if they made over $200,000 a year income.
So your suggestion would be that they write in some
If it had a
salary and
yeah, if it had an income cap on it, I have no problem with it.
Do you have a number?
I don't really have a number, but
I mean, if we were going to change it, we could add, add a line.
This brings up another thing, and I know Commissioner Reed is new. Something like this really needs to come to the board as an item to work on. That way the things can be made out, and that's what spend all her time and Mark's time to do it. So whenever, County Commissioner, some of you knew, whenever we go to put something on the agenda, it's a good idea to have that come before them to see if we want to put it on the agenda before we waste staff time to get it printed up. I don't disagree with that. I think that's a valid point.
I was going to suggest if we say this, everything you're saying, and then also add as long as it had some sort of an income cap, like $200,000
We
income
would suggest
cap.
we would suggest that a
something
income
like that.
cap be added.
Yeah, something like that.
Mr. Reed, do you have any problem with that?
The hearing is this afternoon, which is why I kind of went around our normal procedure
Yeah,
just
I
because it
understand.
was too quick for us to wait a week if we wanted to get behind it. I would still recommend that Leavenworth County Commission gets behind this bill. I think right now we have a precedence of not being as supportive of our veterans in our community as we should be. And I don't think that, that needs to be a reason to not approve it. Let me speak on that real quick, then if anyone else has to.
I think we're very supportive of the veterans. My dad's retired colonel, Army brat up here, lived all over this great world, and I'm very supportive. I think the case is more about, I'm glad that we got the state to pay for it. I think that was a move we asked them to do last year. I think what Jeff, and I'll just speak on, is making sure it's fair. Everybody needs help, especially the military. My dad was wounded in Vietnam. I understand all this stuff. But I think the other issue is having a cap on it would be something we'd put in there. But I understand that this has to be decided today because we need to either go one way or the other. So that's where we are. Did anybody else have any?
Well, so the only thing I'm saying is this could come from Vanessa or one of the commissioners. But if my name's going to be on this and I don't agree with it, I don't think that's the way we should be handling it.
And that's why I think that it needs to come before. Any county commissioner, as Mike has done, can write their own letters of support and sign their name because they're an elected official. But if the governing body wants to do it, and I think that's what Commissioner is trying to do, it needs to come before us. But it still can come to a vote to decide whether we want to sign off on it or not, and the vote can decide that. So I think we have it in front of us now. I think we just need to make a decision. Are we going to support it? Mike, go ahead.
So if we added a line saying that we would recommend that
some sort of salary cap,
there be a salary cap added to the legislation, then you'd be okay with it? Mm-hmm. So could we add that line to the letter?
I mean, I'm assuming that the hearing this afternoon is going to be written as the bill's written now.
So the letter's already turned in?
We would just be, our letter to them would just be adding that suggestion. They don't have to take the suggestion, but that would be our recommendation.
I think that's where everybody's leaning. I mean, if that's got to go in today, we could add that one line and take it for what it's worth if we want to get that passed.
Is that acceptable?
So are you recommending changing verbiage of the letter?
Of the letter, just to add a line that the county commission recommends that there be a cap on income.
And that's just my opinion. So if you four don't think there should be a
cap, we
cap,
want all five to be able to sign.
Yeah.
It's a good thing when you have all of us on top. And I don't want it to look like we don't support the military, because that's absolutely not the case. I think that's a reasonable request, because it shows we've got support for most of it down the line.
So we'll just add that line. Is that all right?
Well, let's see what Willie says.
Mr. Chairman, as a former House member, I think it's very, very important that we do make that recommendation, because as a veteran myself, it's incumbent upon us as a body to make sure that we are acting in the best interest of our veterans. However, I believe that Commissioner Culberson's suggestion is something that we should take very, very seriously. Even though they're having the hearing today, that does not preclude us as a body of going to the revisor's office and having an amendment put together that says exactly what Commissioner Culberson has suggested. So it's not going to affect the hearing. However, it has to be put as an amendment to that, and I believe that you'll get more support from that than getting an outright no from the, I'll say mostly ours in the House, and you're going to need them in order to get this bill passed. So it's my suggestion that we have that amendment drawn up, and it can be done by the Board of Commissioners
I appreciate it. I think as long as Commissioner Reed I think his consensus is that we put that language in the bottom of it or wherever we need to. We could ask Mark to do that if he wouldn't mind, and then you'd still have something you could take to still show support for it.
Okay.
And then down the line, if they need some more information, but I think that's where the hiccup is on that. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Commissioners, can I just clarify the language that you'd like to add? Would it be that we recommend a income cap, a household income cap, or do you have a specific amount, like twice the average income for the state? Or I mean, I can do whatever language you like.
Yeah, I haven't put a lot of thought into the dollar amount. I just in general
put it as general.
Yeah, because in general, just
There should be
doesn't
some
make sense.
some income needs basis to this. Okay, yeah, I can draft that.
Okay. Do we need a motion with that so we can get that going forward, Mark?
Yeah, I would like a motion to approve the letter with the suggested language added.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
If we could, we can contact the lobbyist for the county commissioners, and he would be the one that could go to Revisor's office and get that done for us.
We can send that forward.
And just to comment on Commissioner stated about veterans, I think the perception about the county commissioners not supporting veterans is not accurate. It's been put out there, but the reason that there was that perception is a previous rendition of this legislation had used local ad valorem tax money to fund the exemption. And had we gone down that path, where the current bill uses the state general fund through the Homestead Act, had we adopted the previous bill, Riley County, Leavenworth County, and counties that have large military installations or federal installations would have been severely impacted, and people's property taxes would have had to go up locally.
No doubt.
So that's why we opposed the previous version of the bill.
But
this bill is not that way, and I think we all support it.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad the state and our representatives decided to go that way. I think that was a smart move on their part. Okay, we have a motion and second. Unless there's any other comments. Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, folks. Good discussion. Okay, next thing is St. Patrick's Day Parade participation. Who's going to be in it? Jeff, are you doing it this year?
Yeah, if you guys want, I
I
can
love parades.
drive.
drive your car?
Drive. We
Get
usually
to wave, yeah.
Yeah.
we want to know that. You can do that. Who wants?
I got my Martha wave down.
You're supposed to turn it like this. Vanessa, you going to be in it? Okay. Who? We can get together later, but is everybody going to participate in it?
Yes.
Decide who's going to ride like that. So good. We can let Becky know that.
I think if it'd be good to know if there's going to be one or two vehicles going. I think that's what they're looking for is if we're going to have everybody in one car, are you going to bring two cars? That's what. So if you can make that decision, just let me know.
Well, we can discuss that. It may probably be up to two, but it doesn't matter. We can discuss that right after this.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, Mark, any administrative business?
Nothing else.
Okay, Mike, do you have something?
I do. I had and is Mr. Knoll here, had a request from a constituent. He said, Mike, can you provide me an update on 235th Chip and Seal project? Can you let us know where we're at on that?
So, Commissioners, I was going to cover that today in my quarterly report, but the 235th Street project it's not actually a chip and seal project. It's a full roadway improvement project, and that project is still moving forward. It has been through several federal government processes because we did receive congressionally directed spending, so that changed the requirements. But there will be an anticipated bid letting probably in the next 60 to 90 days, and then that project will move forward. It'll be a 240-day working project, I believe, is what we've been discussing. And the one issue that we currently have is the bearded long-eared bat regulations that have been put back into effect in November. They had previously been ended. Those protections had been ended under the previous Trump administration, but they did take effect in November. And so we will be marking the right-of-way next week and the following week, and the county will have to remove the trees from the property that are taller than 3 inches or larger than a 3-inch diameter trunk prior to April 1st. Due to the Historical Society review, the NEPA process, the State Transportation Improvement Plan updates, and all of the different iterations that this project has had to go through, it will not be under construction by April 1st, and so those trees do need to be removed in order to stop the project from occurring this year. And so we will be taking those trees down, and we will be sending out flyers in order to get that process moving along. I anticipate construction to start by June, and probably last through middle of next year.
So we're moving ahead.
It is moving ahead so far.
And what about the second congressional funding? Do we know anything more about that?
We were told it made it out of the federal committee for funding and was listed in a project for $4 million. Now, that those funding sources have not been approved by the federal government, and under the new administration, I do not know how that process looks. Last time it was approved in approximately March. The general time frame for that would have been October of 2024 for a 2025 approval, but as you guys know, that did not occur. So if the full budget gets approved, I believe that they're currently working under an extended version of the budget, but if the full budget does get approved with those earmarks, is my understanding and what I've been told by Senator Moran's office is that we will receive that funding.
And that'd be all the way from Dempsey to 92?
No.
To 4H Road?
4H Road is currently under design, and then we will, through the sales tax funds, immediately go under design for 4H Road, the last mile and a half. So it is a 2.5 mile section that we have applied for, and we will immediately start designing the last mile and a half. And whether we get additional funding or not, that mile and a half, with all of the $6 million in federal funding and the $1 million in Kansas cost share funding that we have received, we should be able to prioritize that if the board decides to through the 5-year CIP plan and move that into construction as well.
Thank you. That'll be a good answer for him.
Okay, Kenny and I have nothing for administrative business. Commissioner, you have anything?
No.
Any comments?
Thank you, Chairman.
No.
Yes. Okay. Then we'll go to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? If not, I'll start calling roll. Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
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 All right, let's go to formal board action. Consider a motion to approve the letter of support for SER number 1603. Yeah, what is Yeah.
This is just a renewal of our letter for last year. We supported SCR 1611, which was the property tax cap. This is the version that they have introduced in this legislature for the property tax cap. The difference, a couple differences. This is a 3% cap. Last year's cap was a 4% cap. This also, if it's put in the Constitution, it will allow the legislature to actually reduce the cap by statute. They won't have to go back to the Constitution to lower it. They won't have to go back to the statute. The Senate is actually debating this today, and they're going to vote on this tomorrow. So if it passes the Senate with a 2/3 majority, then we will be looking for a vote in the House. With a 2/3 majority, then it will go to the voters, and the voters will decide. They've done polling on this. 64% of Kansans are in support of a property tax cap. Yeah. And it's not an answer. It's not a panacea. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it would guarantee that you wouldn't get a spike every year on your taxes like we've been experiencing the last number of years. So I'm hopeful we can get this through. And this letter is basically identical to last year's letter.
Okay. Any comments on it? Yes, sir.
Yes, Commissioner Stephen has been on top of this from the very beginning. Could you explain to the body the difference in doing it this way and not having to go into the Constitution in order to make that change?
Well, previously, like last year's version, the 4%, if the voters had approved the 4%, there would be no changing of the 4%. It would be in the Constitution that would be the number. This version is still a constitutional amendment, and it sets it at 3%, but your legislature could come by a majority vote, simple majority, and the signature of the governor, and they could lower it to 2%. They could see how it's working, see if it's producing enough revenue. One of the issues is, like, if you cut it too low, does it cut revenue to local government too low? And at 3%, you're actually, though, running above what the rate of inflation has been historically over the last 20 years. So you are allowing government to grow actually above the rate of inflation at 3%. So The fact is, it just lets the legislature have more flexibility.
Correct. Thank you.
Now, is there an income cap in this?
Income.
No, there's no. I mean,
There's no income.
I don't know how you would. Let's see. I'm not sure how you would implement an income limit on that.
So in this case, we believe that no matter what their income is, they deserve a cap on their property tax.
Right.
And the way taxes
Good
have been
point.
going lately, it's something needs to be done. Okay, any more comments on this?
And it is 26 states have a cap of some kind.
Yep.
We don't.
And we do not.
Not yet.
We do not. Okay, I consider a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
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 It's approved. Very good. Okay, now we need to consider a motion to approve the proposed text amendments to the county's 5-year solid waste management plan and for the amendments to KDHE. Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Well, Mike's been in that seat before, so.
I don't like it.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tony.
So I am here as your solid waste secretary. He's the solid waste committee chairperson. I think this one is
Yep.
up first.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just here to present our annual renewal for the solid waste management plan for Leavenworth County. Again, my name is Mike Spickler. I'm the chairperson of the solid waste committee. I work in the city of Lansing. The committee organization is also included, so you can see that as well. We've been asked to make a small amendment and change of the solid waste plan. Those proposed changes are outlined in your packet. So we're here to answer any questions you might have in regard to that.
Any questions, commissioners?
I don't have any.
It's normal, except for those two they added, it looks like, from the last few years,
It was the same as the last one we had?
except for a couple things they added on the back page there that Mike's mentioning.
We can go into more discussion. We did staff this through the council's office.
So, Commissioners, the reason this is before you is there was a review of the solid waste management plan. During that review, we've noticed a minor inconsistency regarding C&D landfills in the county.
Right.
This plan said there were no C&D landfills, which was not correct. So this is a minor text update to the plan to state that there are C&D landfills in the county and the process in which they operate under.
They're just correcting what
They're just-
language and showing it to be correct, that's right.
It's just
Everything
re-
else stayed the same, though.
Correct. It's just reflecting the current situation and practices.
Does this affect, if a new C&D landfill would want to locate in Leavenworth County, does this affect how that process would go, or does it make any changes to initiating a C&D landfill?
It does not affect the process that they would do. It just reflects what currently is already happening in the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Nope.
Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the proposed text amendments to the county's 5-year solid waste management plan and forward the amendments to KDHE.
A second.
We had a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll start with Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, next item is consider a motion to approve the Leavenworth County 2025 Solid Waste Committee member roster and forward to KDHE. Same folks.
Yeah, again, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same folks. They asked if I would also continue on as the chairperson of the committee, and I agreed to do so for the next term.
Not enough pain, huh?
Twisting his arm.
Have you not learned?
Mike can't take you anywhere. Okay, do we have any?
I was late to the meeting.
That's how it happens.
That's what, you're right. Any comments or questions on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I have one thing. Just
Yes, sir.
I noticed that some of the contact information needs to be updated on one of the people.
Yeah,
I can get that for you.
with Stephanie, yeah.
That's not a big deal. We'll change that.
We don't need to do anything with that.
And we were just going to take off her county department and just
Right.
leave it as an
Yep.
incorporated,
Right.
That
if
phone number,
that's okay.
Right.
That phone number might also then.
Yeah.
You are right.
Okay.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the Leavenworth County 2025 Solid Waste Committee members roster and forward it to KDHE.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Mr. Stephen?
Aye. I'm quick.
Wait, you're just getting out of control. Okay, very good. Next item is consider a motion to repeal Resolution 2024-32 and adopt Resolution 2025-7 to correct the legal description. Come on down, folks. Good morning.
Great. Good morning. In front of you is a request to repeal Resolution 2024. Where'd that go? I'm sorry. 2024-32, which was a request to rezone a property or 3 parcels from RR5 to RR 2.5. Once we had that resolution in hand and we took it down to the GIS department, it was determined that part of that legal description was incorrect. So we have brought it back to you to amend it to the correct legal description, which was included in Resolution 2025-07. Now, I just wanted to let you know this didn't affect the public hearing notice at all. We use a shortened legal description for those, and it did not affect any of the identification of the parcels that were included in the request. This is purely just fixing the legal description in the resolution.
It doesn't change anything, except that one thing, right?
Do we have processes in place to see that these type of mistakes aren't made in the future?
We do. This particular one had an exclusion of right-of-way. So it wasn't actually a discrepancy in the actual boundary description. It was an exclusion of right-of-way. So to avoid a strip that was unzoned, this is the process necessary for that. But yes, we have those in place.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, consider motion.
Move that we repeal Resolution 2024-32 and adopt Resolution 2025-7 to correct the legal description error.
Second.
Motion second. Anybody? Okay. Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
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 All right, it's approved. Now we move on to what everybody's here for. Resolution 2025-6, a special use permit for RJ Farm. Take it away.
Before you is case DEV 24-125, which is a request for a special use permit for the parcel at 00000 Cantrell Road to operate a fairgrounds. This request is presented with the understanding that the applicant will be hosting 15 public events within 1 calendar year. Those events could include rodeos, weddings, birthday parties, but we wanted to make sure there's a distinction between a public event and a private event. Per the county's regulations, a private event is something that is not open to the public, not advertised, and you do not pay a fee to get in. So a birthday party for a family member is a private event. Those events would not be included in that 15 event count for this request. These are purely for public events. The applicant has indicated that these events could have up to 300 people, but it's not likely every event would have that maximum cap. They have anticipated that they will need an abundance of parking on the site, so they have accounted for at least 400 spaces. That would include parking for vendors, parking for participants in these events, and parking for attendees to the events. And they have indicated that they will have enough parking per their site plan. These events will be taking place outdoors. There is a existing agricultural barn on site. However, per stats conditions, we recommend that no events take place inside. Obviously, it has not been inspected for compliance with an occupancy load, so these will be purely outdoor events. The site also has a corral or a venue to hold rodeo events. It also has a stage. That stage is located within the floodplain. After their TSUP, they did get a floodplain permit, so that stage is now in compliance with our floodplain regulations. They indicated that they will have vendors on site selling food. As the applicant agent has indicated already, they also noted that they will not be selling alcohol on site, and he also reinforced that vendors will not be selling alcohol on site. The applicant has provided a tax clearance with the state to staff as part of this application, so it is our understanding that they will be collecting sales tax, and that will be accounted to the state accordingly. In addition, as mentioned previously, a turning radius was requested and supplied by the applicant to staff to ensure that the entrance point into this site can accommodate two-way traffic and also the turning of large rigs such as trailers and commercial vehicles. Staff has also requested that they contract with a portable toilet provider to ensure that there is enough portable toilets on site to support the 300 maximum guest count. Let's see. In addition, staff has also placed a condition in there that any waste generated, so both animal and human waste, must be removed from the site within 10 business days of an event. They also have to comply with all state, local, and federal regulations regarding to waste management. In addition, I think there was also concern raised about stacking on the road or parking on a roadway. Staff has also placed those as conditions of approval if you were to do that. There is a lot of other information in the staff report, so if you have any other questions, please let us know. The Planning Commission did consider this in their January meeting. They recommended approval with one amendment, and that amendment was that this SUP would run for 1 year instead of the proposed 5.
I've just got a couple real quick. We got the sheriff's letter late yesterday. I don't like to have things thrown at me and make a decision at the last minute. I also see, I was told, when the public hearing was held, was this held when we had a snowstorm and all that was going on?
Yeah, there was snow. However, when we made that publication date before that, we have to adhere to that date once we publicize for a public hearing. But yes,
I understand that. What I'm getting at is I want to make sure everybody had a chance to be heard. And if weather, because we had some people call today about the weather, if weather threw them off, that's concerning to me. But even more so is, and I'm for the rodeo, believe me, I'm for stuff like that. But it seems like we're not able to verify some things that are happening down there. And I don't know, Mark, that's not our responsibility or what, but we're not seeing the alcohol. We're not having a deputy, a staff, or somebody showing us so we could look at it one way or the other. So there's some things in here that I would just like to see looked at again. And I'm not so sure it wouldn't be the best thing for this body. Just my 2 cents, folks, is this be remanded back to the Planning Commission for additional review. And I've stated some of my reasons, and we've got some other reasons on CAP 2 that we've heard from the folks here. Now, I'm opening up for any commissioners to have anything they want to say on this.
So are you saying you want a hearing?
They have to go back and go through it and go through a public hearing. Time shouldn't be an issue right now, because there's some other things we need to look at. Is it going to be 15 or should it be 12? I want to try to help these people get where they need to be, but also I'm really tired of hearing the residents come in and complain about the exact same thing every day. And the thing Crystal brought up about the horse trick, I wasn't there. I don't know if it's occurring, but I know we can do a better job, or somebody can, of showing if that's occurring on there, so we can make sure that's against federal law about the things that were being brought up at the tripping. So I'd like to see them get their permit, but there's some more information I have to have before I can make a good decision on this.
I know I had asked to visit the property and was denied at the last minute.
And see, that's a problem. I think, and I know we got people here, there's no reason a county commissioner shouldn't be able to look at the property. I mean, you're asking for our help. Is there a reason you won't allow us on the property? Anybody want to speak on that? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Hey, my name is Aurelio Haro. I've been on Leavenworth County for about 28, almost 30 years. I mean, I got there a long time ago. I live in Linwood right now. I'm remodeling my older house. And, And I had this property for, 27 years. I bought it when it was just the plain agriculture. Every tree, every post, everything is there. I actually work for it. I build it myself, which, I mean, to me, it's a big deal. Okay, according to all this, that maybe whoever is saying that, I mean, that we're tripping horses and maybe they should actually attend to. We had a charreada and an American Royal this year, a couple of them. They invited us. I mean, one of my member teams that were out there, they show what was a charreada. I mean, tripping the horses, like they said, is not allowed here in Kansas City. That's why we don't do it. And well, not even Kansas City, the whole United States.
Right.
You play the rope, got to jump 2 times, throw it. Once you help, just kind of do this, let it go. I mean, that's one thing we don't do. The rest of the part of the charreada out here on the American rodeo, you flip a bull by the horns, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference of flipping a bull by the tail? It's even dangerous for us, but that's our culture, and which, I mean, I'm trying just to explain because I mean, there's been things saying that is not even true. 2016, I applied for a 1-day permit. They denied it, and somebody that who used to work here, it was a planning commissioner, invented that there was a massive shooting on my property, which it never did. I mean, they've been accusing. Where's all the police reports?
Yeah.
I mean, I had police over there going through my property, and even when there's a party, they go in and say, "Hey man, I don't see nothing wrong. The next time, invite us."
Yeah.
And if we get this approved, my intention is to hire 2 or 3 officers to be on the side besides the security.
See, that's what, if I could interrupt, that's where I was getting ready to go. You know, a lot of events that are done now at event type, they have security or they have law enforcement. Those are things that we're hearing both sides of. But my question to you was, are county commissioners or staff allowed to come on your property?
They are very welcome to go to my property. The only condition I ask is for me to be there to explain to them. What good would they be? They'll go, and if they don't, they'll be looking at a property.
I don't think that's the intent.
Okay.
I think they want you there, so
Okay,
you can explain
that's
to
the
them.
reason, but I mean-
We were under the understanding that you didn't want us on there, and to me that's another flag.
No, that's not true.
I still think, and I appreciate it. I like rodeos. I appreciate this. I just think, is there a timeline on when you have to have this
What do you mean?
approved or disapproved? Is there a timeline that you need to have this?
We normally start practicing around March when the weather. It all depends on the weather.
That gives us, what I'm getting at, this gives us some time. I still recommend this goes back to the Planning Commission on another hearing with some of the things that we've got there. Putting things in like hiring security, or I'd say law enforcement, and things that have been addressed by all these folks out here should be part of that. Now, I understand that you've only got so many rules you can do, and you have to follow what they say. But I think the discussion should be had about what they're asking for, the folks, and what you're saying. But to vote on this right now, I'm just not comfortable. So I would ask that it go back. Go ahead, Mike.
A couple things for staff. Was anybody from your office? Didn't he go out to the property? Wasn't he on the property before this hearing? You never had anybody out on the property?
And as part of the SUP process?
Yes.
No.
So we never went and looked.
During one of the events?
Well, not during one of the events. Just went out and looked at the property.
I don't know that what we're going to garner from looking at the property in the absence of one of those events.
Well, I understand, but just we
yes,
didn't have anybody on the
correct.
property.
No, we did not.
So I want to just throw this out there. I wouldn't want to make the gentleman have to be there very often, but if we could set up a time when a group of commissioners could go and be there, instead of him having to show each commissioner.
Well, I'm not saying,
or just one.
I agree with you, Commissioner. I'm not saying that we have to be there running the place. I think security once the things pass up, but I do believe we need to be on site, at least touched it, and say that just opens communications. We see something, we can deal with it and have your conversation with you right then. This is what we've got. We've got it going back and forth. He said, she say, and I don't know. I've seen some things that have been brought before me that look kind of, it's got my attention. Again, unless there's any more comments. Jeff, you have anything?
Yeah, we got maybe a suggestion. So
Go ahead.
What I've noticed is a lot of the people that are hollering about this rodeo are also the ag tourism people. And if this isn't ag tourism, I don't know what is. And so that being said, that opens it up to a whole new set of county and state rules. And also, I've always believed that landowners should be allowed to do whatever they want to do on their own property until that infringes on other people to a point that there's a problem. If this particular case was a first time or one time only event, I don't have a problem with it. I would see it as similar to just a big family reunion or a 4th of July party. Neighbors don't usually have a problem tolerating cars parked along the road for a mile, or loud noises, or traffic, et cetera, all that stuff on a one-time deal. But even once in a while is okay. But if this is ongoing and more, that's where we have a problem. So the owner doesn't live on the property, though, right?
I live on 136 Bowen Street there on Linwood. 5 minutes away.
Okay, so
yes,
what I'm
they're in town. I've been there for 28 years.
But nobody lives on the property the rodeo's at. So, if it's not an absolute necessity that you have the rodeo at that exact location, why can't they have the rodeo at the Leavenworth County Fairgrounds? Because that's set up specifically for exactly what you're doing. It already has everything. It's got parking, it's got vendor booths, it's got bleachers, arena, fences, paddocks, everything you need. And that way you could turn this into an asset for the community. It'd be a huge draw. Instead of making this a problem for the community, it could be a huge asset. So is there some reason you can't have it at the Leavenworth County Fairgrounds?
Okay, the reason, because, the Leavenworth County arena is way too big for the rodeo that we actually do. It's way too big.
You can shrink it down.
Another thing, we'll have to build the corrals the way you got them set up as Mexican rodeos, which it's a square arena. That's team roping, American roping, everything. So it's a little bit different. And we have to move everything to Leavenworth when we have our own property. That's why we have our property.
Because the property is not zoned to do what you're trying to do. That's why. And the Leavenworth County Fairgrounds is.
And you just lend it to us?
They rent it out. And it's very cheap. It's almost nothing.
Because, to me, Leavenworth Fairgrounds is too big. It's way too big to do the rodeos. And another thing.
The arena itself, you're saying?
Yeah, everything. And another thing is, it's not all. We're talking about rodeos. Those 15 events, that's not all rodeos. It could be a family that, a good band comes from Mexico. We all want to hear it. Hey.
They have auditoriums at the fairgrounds. They have stages, they have band stages, they have bleachers.
It's a lot nicer when it's an open.
Have you been down there to the fairgrounds to see?
Oh yeah, I'll go every year there, and I saw a lot of alcohol selling out there too. When on the rodeos, a lot of people drunk too. When there's a lot of kids, I saw a lot of all that. But that's on the fairgrounds.
You want to schedule a visit and.
No, I know the fairgrounds. I've been 28 years in Linwood and Leavenworth County. I go every year.
That's what I figured. You probably were familiar with it.
Yes, I'm a big fan of 4-H. I go check all the animals and all that, and go to the rodeos, even the what do you call that when they crash cars and all that?
Yeah, demolition.
Yeah, demolition. I've been through those too. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
I'm just trying to come up with a solution.
Oh no, I understand. Thank you very much. But it's way too big.
Commissioner Dove, did you have something?
Yes, I've heard from several people about this pro and con. One of the things I heard is that you're a very good family man, someone that actually takes care of their families, in-laws, personal friends, and it gives a great personal recommendation on your character. However, there's a couple of things that that struck me is 400 cars for parking. How do you have 400 cars and not acquire more property that does not have a problem with the small street that is actually there? I went out there yesterday, myself, just take a look and look around, and there was no access, which I can understand that. And whoever did the work on the front of the grounds, I commend them to. That masonry work is very, very good. You and I may need to talk about that. Okay. But having said that, I've got many questions, and I don't think that I could actually come to a solution in my own mind that would make me feel good about making a decision after receiving the information that we received yesterday, which was very, very late. And it would seem like something that we were used to in the Kansas House. We get the information at the 12th hour, and you're asking us to make a decision on the 13th hour. It doesn't work. It's not good for the constituent. It's not good for anyone. And so I would have to, without going in further into a conversation about this, I would have to agree with the chairman is that we need more time in order to make a proper decision, whereas your rights are protected and your neighbor's rights are also protected. I don't see how making a decision now is going to keep the noise level, music level, okay, at a decibel. That individuals who are having dinner with their families are not going to be disturbed, because we hear it about these things all the time, and I think it being incumbent upon ourselves to look at this with more time to make this work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Question for staff. If it's a private event, where does the charging for an event, does that, if it suddenly is being charged for, is that the line where it's not a private event anymore if they're advertising and collecting money?
Per the definition of a private event, they cannot essentially advertise or accept money in exchange to hold the event or have attendees in the event.
So suddenly it's no longer a private event if you're advertising to the public and you're collecting money. So question for you. In the past, have you requested money at the gate or the entrance?
On the gate. We ask for a donation so we can help pay the cost of the event.
So you have collected money at the gate for people to come in?
Well,
it's not sales tickets, it's just donation.
Right, but you collected money for the entrance.
Yeah, donations first to help pay the event, which, I mean, that's the whole purpose of doing the application.
And do you draw a distinction if there's a advertisement for an event and the charge is called a donation rather than called a collection of money?
I don't believe the regulations get into that specific of that, but donations are donations. They are not fees.
But it's money that is being. It's money that's
exchanging money. Yes.
So it would be in violation of the.
Yes.
Thank you.
The only thing that I'd ask is, again, I'm going to ask for a motion to send it back, and we can name the reason. I want to hear from Misty first, but I know it's not part of your job, but the questions that were asked from the people, the complaints, and from the owner of the property, I think that needs to be part of the report that we get back, saying things that, it may be not normal for the planning commission to do that, but when they talk about the alcohol, if you could ask that question and answer that question, so we have a definite answer on what's being accused and what it is that's true or not.
So what we did, Chairman, as a product of the first public hearing, we did contact the Sheriff's Department, and we did go through each one of the incident reports. There were nearly 100. Out of the 100, there were 2 Both of those, none of those were alcohol related.
Yeah.
The two were traffic related. So
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, starting fresh. The things that were said today, I'm sure we all wrote it down. I'd like to see the answers to those when it comes before us again, or when it goes back to a public hearing. I'm going to let Misty, our attorney, talk here in a second. So the things have been things, we're going to start dancing around it. One person said this is a violation. One person saying that. Let's get clear information on what we know to be true, and now that we know, we can meet you out there and look at the property. That's what I'd like at. And I know y'all know how I feel about sending this back. But Misty, you have anything you want to say on
Could I
this?
just real quick?
Yes.
It seems like a lot of the concerns that have come up really come down to an enforcement process. So who can be out there to make sure that if we set these rules, the rules are followed? I think that's really, because you have people who say, well, they're serving alcohol, and you have people say they're not serving alcohol. Well, they're having these events that are illegal, and they say well, they're not having these events that are illegal. So it comes down to an enforcement process. And honestly, the county has never and does not have a way to have an officer, a codes officer on site on the weekends. We just don't have it. So if this is going to be something that we have more of, or in this case, this one, that may be something we need to consider as the Board of County Commissioners if we're going to have either amend the hours for staff so that somebody can, whenever there's an event, that somebody can be there. It's kind of like what the sales tax collection group out of Kansas, Topeka, the state of Kansas does. They have somebody who goes out on weekends and checks these kinds of events to make sure that sales tax is collected. So if we're going to have these events and we're going to have more of them, it seems to me that it comes down to enforcement more than anything, because we have a person here who has agreed to play by the rules. We have people who are concerned that they won't, and we have rules that the commission wants to put in place, but we don't have an avenue to monitor to see. So I think that's probably what we need to be discussing, is getting someone who can attend these events from the county to monitor to make sure that they are following the rules. And I think that's what it really comes down to.
That may be the way we have to do it, because we need somebody on staff to tell us what they saw. I think by putting law enforcement as working the event will be a big help for us too. But it's not our staff. I understand that. I really don't have a problem if it can be arranged without increasing money we're spending, charging the taxpayers, of having something like that, not just for this event, but to have something. And maybe that's not the answer. I think you've got on the right step. That, again, is why I don't want to see us take a vote on this today unless the county commissioners disagree. I'd like for it to go back, and all of us, not just to the planning commission, but all of us have a chance to think about how can we make this work better? Because right now we're seeing this every year, every 2 years, and we're just voting, and I'm not comfortable doing that anymore.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question on for legal staff. If we place a condition that he stated he was going to hire some security, but we placed a condition about the security and the enforcing our rules, and also we have the objections from the Humane Society, a condition about verification of the out-of-state animal licenses. And if we place these conditions, I think the problem, I agree with sending it back, but I think we need to give guidance to the Planning Commission on what they need to be looking at when we do send it back, that these are the conditions. We're concerned about the animals. We're concerned about the fact that the Humane Society is in opposition. We're concerned about the fact that the sheriff has sent a letter in opposition. We're concerned about that. We want to actually work with law enforcement to figure out what the conditions they would like to see in place. Is that things we can do?
One thing that we could add to, see, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe we can't. If we're going to have a staff have to be out there, why couldn't the organization pay for that staff?
They could.
Misty, go ahead. I know you've been, you've been wanting to talk, so go ahead. Have at it. Correct us all.
I think this has been a good discussion, and I would add that when we had the public hearing at Planning Commission, they also had a thoughtful and robust discussion and struggled with this. But the Planning Commission was advised, and I advised this body too, that any decision that you would make would need to be based off of evidence that was presented at the public hearing and they can't be based off of mere allegations. It would need to be, to my knowledge, with all of the charges of animal cruelty that are being brought forth, those were never charges brought against the applicants. There's no convictions on it. So I did give that guidance to the Planning Commission.
Right.
This body can hear other evidence, but you couldn't make your decision on it today. That doesn't mean I would not ask you to ignore evidence brought forth by staff or reports from elected officials. So if what I'm hearing is the governing body doesn't feel like they have sufficient information today, and I'm also hearing that perhaps the commission doesn't believe the forum of the public hearing was adequate in light of the snow, so you are well within your rights to remand it back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. And I do think if you do that, it would be a good idea to articulate what items you'd like additional information on, because just rehearing what they did would have us back in the same place. So you'd want to articulate concerns where you need more information or to vet out certain conditions.
I think one thing that would be important to me would be that people that couldn't make it through the large snowstorm we hadn't had in 30 or 40 years can make it to the meeting to have their voice heard. I think that some of the concerns are ones that have been written down, have been talked about today, is some things that should be addressed. Now, let me make this very clear. This is no insult or anything towards the staff. The staff does a real good job, and they have to follow the rules, just like our attorney now is telling us what we can do and what we can't do. But I just don't feel comfortable until we have a chance to look at this one more time, and then we'll make a decision. But I think what Mark said is a valid point, but I'm not so sure the event holder, whoever it is, shouldn't pay for the staff's salary.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to regret saying what I'm about ready to say. I know it. But I think maybe in order to make sure that we get all of the conditions and issues that the board wants to have addressed when it goes back to the Planning Commission, maybe you table this for 1 week to give yourselves time to articulate what it is you want the board the Planning Commission to consider when you send it back. And then next week, if you still want to send it back, we can do that with the new direction.
That's fine with me.
Is that okay? Ms. Leisure, is that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If the commission feels like they need additional time to provide the direction to the Planning Commission, we can do that. Usually we get it, you handle it in one meeting, but I understand that in this case that we don't have a clear list of questions or direction to provide to the Planning Commission.
Well, I totally agree, but I think Mark makes a point, too, that I don't want to hold this up any longer, but since we're the one asking questions, maybe we should be putting it down on paper to send it back to ask and then get the Planning Commission back involved. I just want some more answers and more time to look at this before I make a decision that affects a lot of people.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Quick question just for staff. Would they even need an SUP or a TUP if they held this at the fairgrounds? That might be a broader question than you could answer.
Yeah, it's
on
a
the
little
fly.
bit broader question, but
Okay.
from the strictly land use standpoint, no.
So, question for legal staff. We received the letter from the sheriff. You're saying at this point in the consideration, we can't even take that into account?
I'm not saying that, Commissioner.
Nice try, Mike.
I'm not going to ask you to ignore a communication from the Chief Law Enforcement Office in the county. In an ideal world, that information would have came out in the public hearing to allow the applicant time to hear the accusations or the thoughts of the sheriff and address it. So I would recommend if you're going to take that into consideration, that we do send it back to the public hearing and ask for a public hearing and ask that be addressed specifically in the public hearing.
Yes.
And I don't think we have a choice. We have to take into consideration the sheriff's views.
But we can
I would
clarify
agree.
some things, too, though.
Could you make a motion, Mr. Chairman?
The table.
Do we need to table it?
Okay, I think we've talked this one to death. Make a motion.
Can I say just one more thing, please?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, and a lot of the park. I know you guys got pictures of parking on the road. You got a picture that was at our party.
Okay.
And that loud music that they're talking about, it wasn't our party.
Okay.
It was my neighbor's party. It's just that, I mean, we're basically, we're getting accused of somebody else's party.
We don't have a noise ordinance.
We're not.
in Leavenworth County.
Listen, we're not doubting you. We're not doubting people over here. We're just trying to get some more evidence so we can take a look at it. So I appreciate your comments. Did you have one more comment? I did. Okay, make it quick, please, because usually we don't have this.
Just remember, he was supposed to have that TSUP event on July 27th. That was the code. If you read it in the packet, the code judge said to have that event, and he did not. And the Planning and Zoning Committee did not know he didn't have that event.
Well, see, I appreciate that.
Okay, and then just one more thing. If he's making $40, he charged Commissioner Steedman back 3 years ago $40 to get in. If he's doing $40 times 400 people, he's making a hell of a lot of money, and that could pay for staff. Fairgrounds is an excellent idea because this has been problems for 20 years for everyone around there. And in the SUP, it was 60. It's 60 decimals, and Mr. Jacobson spoke to how they will measure that. So we have had 20 years of problems.
Okay.
And if you want to come to an event, go to the event. Without the event, it doesn't matter. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Can I just say something for the folks that live down in that area? When this goes back to the next public hearing, if you want to weigh in on this, the people need to be there at the public hearing.
Absolutely. John, did you want to say anything? You had enough to say.
Only if you have a question.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion before we keep going down this road. I'm going to make a motion table case number DEV 24-125 or the special use permit for RJ Farm.
Second.
Motion. Is that the special use permit or resolution 2050-6?
Yes, and are you tabling it to a date certain to next week?
Next week, yeah.
Thank you.
If that Misty's at work, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Table until next week. What date is that? The 12th. Well, that's going to be a good meeting. We have some other things. Okay. That's my motion. Second. Please, no more discussion. No. Commissioner, I'll call.
You don't know.
Commissioner Stephen?
I think we've discussed it.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to state that my vote is in support simply because I think we need to give very clean and defined instructions when we send it back.
I agree. That's
Thank
what we're
you.
trying to do. Okay. Is that an aye?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeff? Aye. Okay. Well, that's what we're going to do, folks. You heard it here. Okay. Presentations and discussions. We'll see if we have anything else before we go into the quarterly reports. I'll hold that other thing for the next one. Quarterly report, planning and zoning. John, it's all yours.
All right. Well, I will attempt to be brief, as Bill is behind me, and it's a much larger report. In essence, we've had a 39% increase in single-family home permits over last year and the year before. It's 21 ADUs, 152 accessory building permits, and about 52 plats. Currently, we have an exorbitant amount of rezonings and about a 17% decrease in platting. That's normal. Normally in the process, you've got a rezoning action, you've got a preliminary plat and a final plat. So they're just on the front side of another action. We see a lot of rezonings, plats are going to follow, but it just didn't fall within the report period. So I anticipate we're going to have a similar year as we had last year. We're at, 113% of our anticipated 2024 revenue projections. So we went over and above what we anticipated we'd get, which is another good sign. So again, I think the market in Leavenworth County is very, very healthy, and it's improving by the day. We also have 2012 code series that we anticipate approving, or at least this body considering in the first quarter of this year, moving from the 2006 that's currently adopted. We anticipate annual policy review, which again we complete in the first quarter of the year. We have a number of items there that we're going to be bringing forth to you. Annual review of the comprehensive plan also will occur in the first quarter, at least be stepped off in the first quarter. We typically try to hone that down to 3 or 4 goals for the plan for the entire year. And as you know from last year, it takes a number of months to vet that and then eventually approve it. As you can see from the report, we're in attendance of a number of MARC committees. The MARC Technical Review Committee, which actually funds transportation through 2050, or at least 10-year cycles. We've been in that for all of 2024, and it should be finishing up here at the end of the first quarter of 2025. And with that, I would answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners?
No questions. Not for me.
Ms. Reed? Of course, Mike, but hold on a second. I know you do. We'll give you the floor in a second. I'm glad to see it. It seems like Leavenworth County has been a good place to build in the last couple of years, so I'm glad to see that. And I'm glad the way we've redone our application, try to help people when they come in and do that. Because when we're tagging right along with Baser, and Baser just building left and right, that means people are wanting to build in the county, which I think is a very positive thing. Jeff, I'll go to you before I give the floor to Mike. Please say something. I don't want to give the floor to Mike.
I yield my time.
Oh, sure. We're going to talk about this.
That means I got to go twice as long.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, your staffing level in your office, is it adequate for all the things you're trying to accomplish? And do you see that changing?
Only if the scope of the department changes. Right now, we have adequate staffing for what we accomplish. If you add additional tasks, we may have to have additional staff.
Okay. For now, you're good.
For now, I'm good.
All right. That's all I got.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you.
Here comes my favorite. Public Works. Come on down. Bill.
Yeah, he's very brief, too.
Yeah, he's like you. He's like you, Mike.
He's sharp today.
Good break.
Does anyone have any questions today about
No, I like that, Mike.
Before we get started.
Before we get started, I've taken a lesson from IT.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, okay. So today, Commissioners, we do have the fourth quarter report. For the new commissioners on board, I wanted to provide a little bit of a layout of the department. So I did provide that on page 1. As you can see, we have several major branches of the Public Works Department, including surveying, engineering, review, project management, road and bridge, noxious weed, and fleet management. So, and GIS, I'm sorry, I did not include them. So you can see from that layout of the department, we do offer a lot of services, and they are wide-ranging from mapping to road and bridge maintenance. I'm going to start the report today with our road and bridge fourth quarter numbers. We installed or replaced 35 culverts. We used 16,495 tons of rock. We did receive a shipment of 3,115 tons of trap rock. We used 1,094 tons of asphalt. We used 3,000 gallons of road oil. We received via shipment 840 tons of salt. We did receive 400 tons of sand, which is pretty customary that we would receive that amount of sand with that amount of salt. We did have the one major snow event. That snow event was one of the largest one-day total snow events that this area has seen in quite a while. We did respond to that. You guys are aware of that, how that transpired. And I believe those guys worked a lot of long hours, and they did a very good job under the conditions that we were facing and some of the issues that we had with KDOT suspending their maintenance. And so we need to use KDOT routes in order to get to our routes. And so it is a team effort, and we need to work with KDOT and continue to communicate with them through the process and keep the trucks on the road as much as possible. That's what got a lot of folks into trouble in this snowstorm. There was a little bit of ice before it started, and those surfaces became very slick and then were covered in a lot of snow. We produced 15,000 gallons of salt brine, mostly as a result of that storm. We do have the new salt brine management system that we bought probably 18 months ago that does mix that for us. We used 35,000 gallons of fuel, and we did $96,000 worth of repairs. Overall, the budget of the Road and Bridge Department, we've gone over this previously. The spreadsheet here below reflects 2% remaining, but that was after we transferred out the savings from the switch in procedure from haydite to trap rock, which did save the county approximately $1.4 million. That is a year after year, hopeful savings that we will see again this year. Obviously, we had a 10%, 8 to 10% increase in that trap rock cost for this year delivered, and we don't know exactly where oil prices will stand this winter or this summer. Excuse me. We will bid those in March and April and lock those prices in for the summer season, but we do not know exactly where they stand. We have to have some money remaining in the budget every year for our cash carryover balances, and I believe that we were about $45,000 over that amount that is required to fund the cash carryover. Local service had 5% remaining, and those funds were primarily the cash carryover balance. We can go below those amounts, and we have in the past. Year before last, we actually finished the year with $120,000 left, less than 1% of our total budget. But that is getting there is risk involved in doing that. We try not to run the budget down to 1%. If you get a snow event in December, the result would have to be that you would republish the budget and transfer funds from some other funding source. Now, I don't know the implications of that. That's not my role, but you can be conservative and you can be fiscally responsible, but at the same time, from a management perspective, we need to have some of those funds remaining at the end of the year, every year, in order to combat any issues that may arise, because you can spend a lot of money very quickly when you have a 12-inch snow event. So the other budgets came in on budget for the 2024 cycle. We do have we have an intermittent on-call position that's vacant in noxious weed, and we have 2 full-time positions. Those are not long-held positions. They will be filled. They're currently being advertised. We have had applicants, but we had some turnover here recently in positions. So as you guys will see, and commissioners have seen before, we always have some vacancy that we are always rotating through employees. Noxious weed is mowing, and when they could during the last quarter after the snow event, that obviously stopped a lot of the mowing from occurring. We did have some downed trees, and we have been doing some tree maintenance as we can, as snow allows. We have mowed all of the 3 times all the secondary roads, and we've mowed twice some of the local roads, with a few of the townships having seen a little bit of a third coverage. That is not full width right away. That is in a lot of cases intersections and 1 or 2 passes on the shoulders. That is not the entire 1,750 miles, all from right-of-way edge to right-of-way edge. That is critical points and the edges of roads. Just to touch a little bit on the chemical sales, there are a few that were up. As you can see, Johnson grass, Outrider is the chemical we use for Johnson grass, and we did have an individual come in last year and speak about the Johnson grass and the Kate Out right-of-way, but we are seeing a continued growth of Johnson grass in the county. Once it's established, it is very hard to eradicate. I have seen instances where it has been burned down by the chemical and killed all the way to bare earth, and then the next year when it rains heavy, it sprouts in the same location despite the fact that it was dirt, and it had basically looked like it had become dead. The seeds lay dormant and then germinate, despite the fact that you've sprayed it the year before. So I think that's something that is going to be a continuous battle over the next decade. So you will see an increase in folks using that as deer and other animals spread that seed. Other chemicals, because of the vast increase in cost, have had their usage go down quite a bit, and this report reflects that. So while we've had a couple chemicals go up in cost based on a surge in the growth of the noxious weed, other chemicals just based simply on their cost, and as you guys have been here for a few years and to the commissioners, we saw extremely high rates of inflation over 50%, in some cases 75 to 100%, I believe, in some of the chemicals after COVID, and some of those prices have come back down some, but they have continued to remain extremely high. We are anticipating a cost increase, talking to some of our vendors, of $5 to $8 a gallon for a lot of the chemicals that we see next year, which, depending on the chemical, and honestly, depending on some of the tariffs, because a lot of these chemicals come from overseas, it's hard to say exactly where the price will be, but we expect to see another double-digit increase as far as percentages go in the cost of these chemicals. And so we have not seen increases in the budget in that amount, so the amount of chemical we are selling, because we subsidize chemical sales, every gallon that we sell, it does cost the budget money. And so when the cost goes up, if the sales don't go down, we will eventually get into a point where we start to run out of chemicals to sell. I'll cover quickly the different projects. The projects are.
Mr. Knoll, I have a question for you on that first page.
Go ahead.
The culverts there, 35 culverts, were all of those still funded with ARPA funds, or are we getting into using our county funds now?
These culverts, none of those would have been funded by ARPA funds. The ARPA-funded culvert projects would have been listed under projects in this report, but these are just general maintenance. If any driveway culvert under county policy currently that's installed anywhere on our county roads, and any crossroad culvert, is the maintenance responsibility of the Leavenworth County Public Works Department. So we're currently have started the process of re-inventorying those and going out and taking pictures of every single culvert and measuring its size and doing a condition assessment of those culverts. But just to speculate here today, I would say that it would not be shocking if we had 30 to 35,000 culverts in the county that are under the responsibility of the road department, because every driveway that's not a mound entrance and every crossroad culvert in the county under current policy is the responsibility of the road department. So
a lot of culverts.
That is a lot of culverts. So
back to the ARPA funds, just for folks to know and the information, how many approximately culverts were funded with using ARPA money?
14 culverts, but those culverts were large. So we classify culverts in bridges into three categories. We have culverts that are between 15 inches and 48 inches. Those are your typical culverts. They are usually generally outside of the waters of the U.S. They're not in a creek channel. They're just in ditches and in different crossings of the roadway. Then we have 48-inch culverts to 96-inch culverts. That's our large metal culverts. You can get up to generally a 96-inch. You can get larger, but typically 96 inches. And then you go from a 96-inch culvert into all of your box culverts and arch culverts and culverts between the 96-inch mark and the 20-foot mark. Once you get to 20 feet, any opening is considered a bridge, and that is regulated by the state of Kansas. And so what we did as part of the 14 culverts is we used some of those funds. The county replaced all of the ones that were under 96 inches and under, pretty much, except for one that was 25 feet deep. And then we contracted those culverts that were cast-in-place concrete and precast concrete culverts. So we don't typically replace those with county staff.
And those are culverts that were not on any kind of a CIP or replacement schedule?
They were not funded. They were on a replacement schedule. We had done an assessment in 2020 of the culverts in the county and had identified them in need of immediate replacement, but they were not funded.
So that was that's a point, is that the fact that we used our money from ARPA to pay for these culverts, and it was an important thing. I see the chairman over here.
That's good. Moving right along.
So we have a lot of construction projects. We have one ongoing project that is currently actively under construction out on Eisenhower Road. It is anticipated to be finished by February 20th at the latest. It will be opened with a gravel road or gravel surfacing, as the asphalt plants aren't currently open, but we are not going to let the road remain closed. Once the backfilling of the culvert is complete that was delayed because of the snowstorm. Once that is complete and we have AB3 surfacing, we are going to reopen that roadway and put up warning signs because it will be a rough surface. And then as soon as the asphalt plant's open, the contractor will be back to pave the road. But we are not going to continue to inconvenience the public. If we will warn them of the hazard that may exist from the AB3, and we will maintain that AB3 and try to keep there from being any rutting or dipping. And then as soon as the weather reaches a point where we have temperatures 50 degrees and rising for asphalt work, we will have the contractor come back and put down the asphalt surface. But we anticipate that opening very shortly. We have a bunch of projects coming up. The two first projects that will be bid is the Tide 2 projects on Tonganoxie Road. Those two projects are going to be in their March KDOT bid letting. The county does not bid those projects. And so they will be bid in the March letting. And then the Fairmount Road Bridge ST26 is the second bridge. We hope to have that bridge under construction by late March. So that bid will be going out in the coming weeks for advertisement. So Fairmount Road will be closed. Tonganoxie Road will be closed. Then we will close County Route 30 for the project that was discussed earlier in the beginning of the meeting. That project will be bidding in 60 to 90 days. After the completion of Fairmount Road later in the summer in June, 179th Street will be closed between 92 and 73 Highway. And then in August, by August, we have to bid the two bridges on Golden Road. And then Golden Road will be closed between K32 and the bridge to DeSoto. So we have major high traffic roadways. Yeah. These projects all, except for ST26 and the one on 179th Street, Fairmount Road project, bridge project, and the 179th Street, those two are fully county funded, and we control the time frame of those. Although KDOT has notified us of the imminent downgrading of those bridges and moving towards closure, so we are under a time frame, but the funding of all of the other projects and the time frame of construction is completely controlled by KDOT. And we will have thousands of cars, literally 5,000 to 7,000 cars a day in the county being rerouted by the end of the summer onto detours. And so I do expect a lot of phone calls, both to my department and to the Board of County Commissioners and probably the administrator, because we are going to have to reroute 5,000 to 7,000 cars a day.
And you're not putting any of them down George Road, correct?
No. No, none of them are going down George Road, but some of them are in your district. Actually, a lot of them are going to be in your district, Commissioner. So you will receive phone calls. And we are aware of it. We are posting detours on the roads, on the Tonganoxie Road. I know in the past there's been concerns because we haven't posted detours. If there is not a viable paved road detour and the project is occurring on a paved road that's being closed, then we don't post a detour, and we do not direct traffic onto a lesser surface roadway for reliability. Local traffic will find their route, is what the common statement is. But Tonganoxie Road has a paved road detour that goes to the west and goes back south. So it will be posted, fully posted. And that road gets 3,500 cars a day, actually more traffic than K16, where George Road was closed. So there will be a lot of closures. That project is 140 working days.
You're getting a lot of phone calls.
That's what I was going to say, Mike.
So if there's any discussion that needs to be had about that, I'd be happy to relay that information to you or to the people that need to have it. Is there any, before I move past the projects, is there any additional project questions? We will be back, probably Mark and I will be back within 60 days to discuss the 5-year CIP and the project planning process to kick off your budget cycle.
Excuse me.
But in the meantime, or here today, do you have any questions?
Where are we at on the Golden Road bridges? Where's that project
Currently,
at?
those projects are under design. Only one of the two bridges needs acquisition. KDOT, we're We're going to submit our reviews to KDOT in the next probably week. For those bridges, they need to be bid by August. But like all things, we're up against all federal requirements. All right, I'm going to move on just to the last couple of sections. Fleet management. We're still under Public Works, responsible for the procurement of all heavy equipment in the county in all departments and the vehicles for all of the different uses. So currently, we have 75 units leased from Enterprise. We have 144 GPS units and 139 cameras that are installed that we are monitoring and making sure that they are operational and trying to keep those. Sometimes they do fail and they do have issues, and so we do try to monitor those on a weekly basis and make sure that we're ordering new parts as necessary. It seems like they do go out more often than they should. We have a list of equipment being replaced. I will say we've had a lot of issues with delivery of equipment in a timely manner, and that seems to be ending. The manufacturing has apparently caught up with the demand a little bit, and so we aren't having to wait 18 months to 24 months to get a vehicle under a government contract. We are able to get them in 6 to 9 months, but we are still ordering equipment anywhere between 6 and 18 months in advance of when it actually is being delivered. So trying to stay ahead of those replacement schedules that are part of the budget approval process.
Mr. Knoll, could you address for people the importance of the cameras and the equipment and how that saves the county money and liability?
Well, obviously there's the liability of we have everything on film when a vehicle is operational. We've had vehicles stolen. In many cases, they've been recovered immediately because they may have unplugged the cameras, but the GPS has been enabled. We've had issues with catalytic converters being taken, but they caught those people on the cameras that were activated when they pulled on the door handles. We have had issues that are HR issues that I'm not going to get into specifics of. And then we've also sometimes get calls from the public where they state that an employee was parked somewhere and they were there for 2 hours, and we can verify whether that's accurate or not. And in many cases, we found that they may have been parked there for lunch for 30 minutes and it wasn't. So it is both. It keeps everyone accountable for what they're doing. I don't know. I don't deal with the insurance necessarily costs, so I don't know what the impact is on that.
Does it save us money on insurance?
Commissioner, I don't think it gives us a discount on our premium or anything like that. But like Mr. Knoll said, it has helped us recover vehicles that have been stolen. It's great for us when there's an accident that our vehicles are involved with. We have that information. So I think it probably saves us money on the recovery of vehicles and whatnot, but we don't get a specific discount on our insurance because of it.
Thank you.
Okay. The surveying department, about once a year or so, maybe once every 9 months, we do finish a township survey, and this is a monumental step forward for the county. We are the oldest county in the state of Kansas, but we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of unreported section corners for property surveying in the county, and as everyone knows, the property values in Leavenworth County have become extremely high, and we are going about monumenting every section corner that was part of the original GLO survey of the state of Kansas, and those corners are the corners that every property in Leavenworth County is laid out off of. So in order to establish where your boundary is, you need to know where these section corners are. They are the basis of all legal descriptions. And so we are in the process of monumenting those. And for the new commissioners, we have completed Alexandria, Easton, and Kickapoo townships. This last quarter, Kickapoo Township was completed. And those 3 townships had the most reports of either missing corners at the state level through the Kansas Historical Society or had double corners at some of the locations that needed to be corrected and determined which corner is in the accurate location. Currently, included in the report was High Prairie Township. We are currently working in High Prairie Township, and that process will probably last through most of this year in order to get to every single section corner. And I know Commissioner Reed's probably familiar with it, her district, but High Prairie Township has a tremendous amount of dead-end roads, and there is a tremendous amount of hiking that's going to occur by our county survey technician in order to get to the location of all of these corners. But it is very important that we complete this. I know when we started this process, I said it would probably take 5 to 7 years, and it still seems to be taking in that 5 to 7 year range. But it will alleviate property line disputes and legal action and disputes between property owners, and establishes the basis of all land division and land records in the county. So they're doing a great job on that. And then the GIS department. GIS department continues to do great work. They have we could do a complete presentation with SOMA coming up if we ever find a work session where you guys would like to, but we have a multitude of interactive maps that we have now produced through the GIS department that are for specific uses. We have traffic maps, we have accident maps, we have building permit maps that you can look at jurisdictions and building permit locations and building permit trends over the past 5 years. They have all been mapped, and all of that data is available through these different web applications that they have produced. So if there's any mapping that you would like to see done, or it may have already been done, or data that you would like to see, those are web-based applications. And so you can get in there and see every building permit by year, by jurisdiction, SUPs, zoning, anything you would like to see. It's probably already available, but if it's not, I'm sure that we could work on it.
Questions, concerns, comments, except for Mike?
I think you're doing a good job.
I think you're doing a great job. I agree with you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, last thing we have is presentation discussions. I'll start with Mr. Stephen. You have anything for the group?
Well, I think I've talked enough, so I don't want to overdo it. So I will move on. I will yield the time to you.
I'm getting us out of here. I have nothing to report. Nothing. Commissioner Reed.
I didn't mean to imply that Chairman Smith wasn't pro-veteran in any way, but I do think that some of the comments that have been made by maybe commissioners not present at this time, I think we just have to be careful about what we say, especially if we're casting kind of a blanket over the state, over the county. And I don't necessarily oppose any of the views. I think, Culbertson had a good point. It's something I was interested in with the last bill that didn't make it, but I was just trying to point out that we need to make sure we're fair and even-handed in our considerations of other bills as well. So thank you so much.
Very well said. Thank you. Mr. Culberson?
I don't have anything this week.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Move.
Second.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Good meeting. Thanks, folks.